So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the land we identify as RTO9 is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat peoples. RTO9 and the Indigenous Tourism Ontario honor and respect the lands, the people, and the treaties. We are extremely thankful for the original tour guides of these lands and all that they have shared. All those that reside, work, and play on these lands are treaty people, and we must honor the treaties in a mutually beneficial and equitable manner. With 1 in 5 Indigenous people in Canada living in Ontario, we believe working together in a mutually beneficial manner will help all Ontarians prosper through the joint development of the tourism industry. Ontario is home to one of the largest Indigenous tourism industries in Canada. RTO9 and ITO are pleased to be working side by side together under an MOU to help advance the Indigenous tourism industry in Ontario. As an ally to Indigenous people and a partner of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, RTO9 will commit to improving the socioeconomic conditions of Indigenous people through tourism by creating space for Indigenous people to tell their stories on their terms. Now, I just wanted to touch on a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started this morning. First, this workshop is being recorded and will be available for viewing after today's session on the RTO9 website, which is just rto9.ca. There will be a question period at the end, so if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom. This can be done anonymously. Or if you prefer, you can always put it into the chat window on the side and we'll get to them all at the end. You will also receive an email following today's session with a quick 2-minute survey link. If you're able to spare some time to review the workshop, that would be really appreciated. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our lovely facilitator this morning, Phil Casey.
Thank you very much. It's a good morning, everybody. And thank you, Meg, for having me here and for all of you for coming. So my name is Phil Casey, and I work at Attraction Ontario, but I also do a lot of consulting with attractions for partnerships on the side as well. So today I'm going to be talking about, I'll just share my screen. Everyone see my screen okay? So partnerships in tourism, why they work and where to start.
I was going to say, I don't see it, Phil.
Oh, you don't see it? Okay, hold on a second. Technology,
it works until it doesn't.
It works. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not used to the.
Perfect. There you go.
There you go. Hey, early morning. So partnerships in tourism, why they work and where to start. So what I will be covering during this workshop is my partnership background. So you know a bit where I came from and how I've picked up a lot of my partnership experience over the years, the importance of partnerships. We're going to talk about how to approach partnerships to make them work for you and everybody else you're partnering with, and working with the different levels in tourism and partnership. And also, like Meg mentioned, there will be time for questions. So my partnership background, I have over 20 years of experience creating and growing partnerships across the province. Now, I started off at an attraction level, so a lot of my early partnerships were business to business, but over the years, I have grown to have it with corporate, cultural centers, events, you name it, pretty much I have worked with it over the years. I'm also actually brought in a lot of times to facilitate partnerships between parties. So I will be brought in to be almost like the mediator to help figure out the best way for people to work together or develop a partnership idea if they're stuck on something. And I understand the needs for partnership in our industry because without partnerships, a lot of the areas wouldn't have anything to offer, right? You can only it doesn't work if you're all by yourself in an area without more to offer to the consumer. So this just quickly, so you know a bit more about me for that. And I've been currently at Attraction Ontario now for 18 years. So prior to that, I was 5 years at a glow-in-the-dark mini golf. So I got to learn a very different kind of partnerships at that level. So the importance of partnerships adds a very unique, sorry, I gotta move this little screen out of the way so I can see what I'm reading. Adds a unique experience to your attraction, city, or region, especially in the age now since the pandemic where the consumer is looking for authentic experiences for whatever region they're in. Partnering with different things can create a one-of-a-kind experience for you in your city or town or region, whatever it is. It introduces your attraction to a different market that you might not know, that might not known of you previously. So if you're like a cultural location and you start partnering with like a local craft brewery for an event or another attraction, people that might not have known you prior all of a sudden are saying, oh, they're working together. Maybe because they're working together, I might enjoy doing that as well. So it can open a lot of doors for you. Can help turn your destination help your area turn into a destination and not a drop-in. And what I mean by this is that a lot of times people complain that, oh, well, people just stop in here for a second and they keep on going to a bigger, better town down the road. And I think, well, that's not really fair. It's just because they don't know what you offer. So if you partner with a lot of different attractions in your city or in your town region, all of a sudden they'll stop for you, and you'll become a place where they actually plan to go and visit and spend a full day, a night, a weekend, depending what you have in the area. But it'll change their entire perspective of you. Also, this part's very beneficial because if you're trying to market yourself and you partner with a bunch of attractions that have very little budgets, all those little budgets together all of a sudden become a large budget. And you can take that to and it opens up a whole new bunch of avenues to showcase yourself to the consumer by working with a lot of different levels in the province. And I'll touch on that a bit later as well. It's also just a great way of sharing skills and resources equally for a united goal. And what I mean by this is that, say you are an expert in one thing that you have, and then the other person you're talking to, you never knew that they're great in something else. So whatever you're lacking in your knowledge window, they might be able to help you with that and vice versa. So these partnerships, to make them as beneficial as possible, you have to always think of how to share that information. So how do you approach a partnership and growing one? So analyze what your problem is, there's all these pop-ups here. Analyze what your business is missing. So sit down and look at what you want to better yourself in, or what you think you're missing that you can't do it yourself. That's one of the big things, and a lot of times it's hard for people to actually sit back and look at themselves and say, okay, I do need the growth here. I don't have the manpower for it, or the expertise for it, or the budgeting for it. And this is where the real thought to get to have a partnership is. Investigate businesses that will complement your brand. So a lot of times people just try to blindly partner with whatever they think is trendy or hot. But I think a lot of times you have to really, really look at, will this partnership help me, or will it damage what I've already built as my brand? And like sometimes people approach me and say, hey, I had like a Google approach me for something. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not really doing, they just want to put a banner on your site. They're not really going to help you. It's not really a partnership per se. It's more of a one-way partnership, because your message will get lost in that. Or if you're a family center and you partner with a bar and grill that's known for being rough, things like that. People don't realize sometimes that it's not really gonna, the link isn't there, and it'll just confuse the consumer, if anything, if what you're partnering with doesn't make any sense to what you've already established. So you have to look at things that will complement your brand and not hurt you. Make sure the partnership benefits both parties. I've had, a lot of partnerships I've been brought in to look at. The one side wants to win. They want to get more out of the partnership than the other side. And I think that's not really a good way to look at partnerships, but it is a good way to guarantee that partnership will not last very long. So what you do is you look and you find a ways that'll bring to the table something that will benefit both parties equally. So you both come out of this better and you both grow from it. Find the win now mentality, I'm always very critical of that, and I think it's for one side only is never really works out. So a bit more on that, approach it as equals. I find this because if someone goes to talk to you, sometimes people put themselves as the lesser of the part of one of the people approaching. And I think that when you're if you want to have a successful partnership, it's the wrong mentality to have going in. You bring something unique to the table. They bring something unique to the table. So when you approach each partner with respect, and then that way they see the value in you more. If you're already coming to them as dismissive and thinking that you're like, please work with me because you're so much better than me, they're not going to see value in you. And right away you've cheapened what your brand is and what you bring to the table. So approach it with the mentality that you both bring something great to the table, and you both need each other to evolve to the next level. Listen. This is the big one. Listen. There's so many times I've been to a meeting with a true partnership. I'll have an idea in my head, and after 10 minutes of talking, 5 minutes, whatever it is, I'll hear a whole different idea of what they're looking for and what they want. And I think, okay, well, I could do that as well. So if you don't listen to what they actually want, or if they don't listen to what you actually want, then you tend to miss out on what would have been the best option for a partnership. So when you're always going in, listen to what the other person's saying, and hopefully they'll listen to what you're saying, because no matter what you might have in your head as your idea, it might not be exactly what they want. So that's the main thing I always push to people. Never take any partnerships for granted. And I've seen people get burned by this before, where they've been working together for a decade and all of a sudden it goes away because they never actually invested the time in it once it was established. Partnerships are meant to be hopefully grown, and you're supposed to, and I always recommend you do like check-ins and make sure everything's good, which is why my next one, keep communicating, ties together. So taking it for granted, I mean, is you always just go back to the table every year and go, yeah, we're doing this again, right? That's it. Not listening to say, hey, is there anything that we need to look at? What didn't you think worked? I didn't think this worked. Is there a way we can adjust this so that we both get more out of this working going forward? And I think that's one thing sometimes that people don't think to do, because, okay, I got this partnership, now on to the next one. So those tied together are very, very, very important. Now, 3 years. What I mean by 3 years is this. For a partnership, I always say the first year of a partnership, people might not know what you're doing yet. There'll be some people, you'll get some traction. Not all the staff or area will be aware of what you're doing or properly ready for it. So I always think by year two, you'll have a year of experience, a year of what not to do and what worked. People will be more educated on it. And then, so then it'll have a bit more traction. But then by year 3 is when you should see the effective version of your idea of a partnership. And that I use this mentality with every partnership I do, is that if we go through it by year 3, it'll be optimal. It'll be great, right? And that'll be what we envisioned initially it'll be. So sometimes if you can get to year 3, that's great. Now, sometimes after 1 year, if it doesn't fit and it goes back to the comment in the brands or whatever the idea you had, it just might not do it. But if you want one effectively to work, I always say 3 years, and that's the magic number for it. So I'm going to explain the working with different levels in tourism, and I'm going to go through every major one. So local partnerships, and this is like the ground level, business to business. So this works to add a different element to what you offer. So it can take it takes whatever you're doing, and by partnering with other ones like that, especially like with stores or area stores, restaurants, wineries, and breweries, which are all great examples. And I'm going to give an example of an effective usage of that in my next slide. But these are the kind of things you look around to, and you can actually take what you currently have without investing a lot of money in it or staff hours, and it can totally change what you do and add a whole different like revenue market for you by doing it. It can rejuvenate an attraction by doing this. Museums, gardens, restaurants, etc., have all benefited from these kind of local partnerships, province-wide. And this also adds value to accommodation partners, because the more of these an area has, people will start staying overnight. They might stay a weekend, they might stay a week, depending what you have in the area. So look at what, and that goes back to why partnerships work and everything I was saying before, is that these things at the local level are all the easiest things like to do up front to see what's around you to make it work. And I'll give you an example of how this worked. So I was called in to talk to a small museum, cultural center in southwestern Ontario. And but their problem was they were in an area that didn't have a lot of attractions nearby and didn't have a local DMO, a destination marketing organization. So they reached out to ways like, what can we do to rejuvenate ourselves? It's got stagnant. We're trying to focus on the future. So we just brainstormed a bit, and they came back to the table with some great programs that blew me away. They approached a local historian and a craft brewery in the area to create history and hops tour in the fall and winter. Now, what they did is they had one night a week, they had a historian come in and give a unique tour of the center, giving them historical facts as they went. And after, they went back in the main area, and they had a local craft brewery had a sampling area. So they brought this out just through social media. They didn't have a huge marketing budget, and sold out for the first 3 months. It was that successful. And so then what happened is the brewery had, after everyone left, they had a 70%, they had a come back to our location for a free pint, and they had 70% of the coupons redeemed, which is way higher than industry standards for that. So then they took that idea and they created for their summer, that was for fall and winter. So they took that idea and they created something for the summer months called Painting in the Garden. And they sold out so quickly of this that they had to add extra dates. And what they did with this is they brought a local painter in. So again, local, authentic, to come in and teach a class. And they had a local restaurant cater it with appetizers, stuff like that. Local brewery and winery would come in, serve the drinks. And I even got 2 young students who played classical music to play music while they were doing this. These programs started out at 70% local business, 30% from outside the area, and is now 80% outside the area and 20% local. So, and this was with an area that didn't have a whole lot working with it initially, but all of a sudden this little town had the only really attraction that was there, had an effective draw. And it's all from just looking what they had around them and making it work. So regional attractions groups, this is my next level. And prior to the pandemic, there was only the only one that I was really doing anything was the Toronto Attractions Council. But since the pandemic, a lot of these have popped up across the province. And what they are is a group of like-minded businesses, attractions normally, that pair together to meet once a month and find ways to partner together and share information, stuff like that. So the great thing with these is that they're a great way to hear firsthand issues other partners face. So you might think you're alone in whatever issue you're dealing with, but you'll be surprised a lot of times when the other attraction are dealing with the same thing as you. These groups also help find like-minded business to partner with, because it is intimidating sometimes to approach random attractions to work together if you don't know how willing they are, what they're dealing with, whatever. So these groups are very good for that. And like I said, since the pandemic started, I think another 10 of them have popped up across the province and areas, and there's more reaching out to me every day, it seems like. It's also these groups also because they work so closely with all the other levels in tourism. It can actually be a good entry point for you to talk to the DMO, Destination Marketing Organization, regional tourism offices, sector associations, and even Destination Ontario, because a lot of these meetings, there'll be some representative from those local areas that'll show up. So these are great. And if you do have one in the area, I don't know if you do, definitely get involved with that as well. So an example of this and events that came from working with these groups, and I always thought this one was fantastic, was the Toronto Attractions Council created these concierge events. So what they did is they took small budget each, and they reached out and they had one place host the event, and they brought in all the concierges of the hotels in the area to educate them on what the industry was offering, because the concierge is pretty much the gatekeeper of hotels, and they would tell tourists when they went in where the best places to go. These had great turnouts, great results, and they benefited multiple partners at a very effective cost. Now, I know Niagara did the same thing and it worked very effectively. And I know there's different ones, like Burlington did one like that. Vaughn's doing one like that. So they're all trying to copy each other, and because it was successful, and try to do it in their own areas. It's an example of what they did to benefit so many people on a small budget. Okay, so now destination marketing organizations, or DMOs. So what they do, and the great thing with these is that they can help grow your attraction within the local market. Because they're your city that you're in, they understand all the best attractions, restaurants. They have a different knowledge that some other groups won't know to help you, right? So I always say when I'm with talking to attractions, have you reached out to your local DMO yet? Because they can bring in other businesses to help for marketing programs as well without you having to do that. And they can help get you tourism ready. If you aren't tourism ready, they have programs to help you get tourism ready, and they have a budget to help market you in a unique way. So most areas have these. There's new ones being created every few months. It's another one pop up. So if you aren't working with your DMO, I highly recommend that you do. And a great example of a DMO program that I've seen that has been quite effective is the Taste Of program. Now I know this also ties into the Tourism Culinary Alliance, but this has helped reinvigorate not just the restaurant scene in these cities, but also the surrounding attractions and stores, because people travel into to travel in from other areas to get, try authentic restaurants in an area. And by doing so, say, well, now we have time to spare. We're going before. Let's see what the local, what the local attractions offer. Let's do some shopping. Let's take in some events that are here nearby. So this is an example, and it actually was good because even I know during the pandemic there was a dip in that, but I think now it seems like every area is starting to do these Taste Of programs, and I haven't seen an area not benefit from this yet. So and it's also obviously taps into the authenticity factor, which consumers are all about right now, and tourists are all about right now, trying to get that from each region they're in. So, okay, regional tourism organizations. So I obviously used RTO 9, which is a great example of an RTO that actually does what they're supposed to do and benefits their attractions partners and businesses in the province. So RTOs are able to help develop your product and advertise it to a much larger group. Apologize for that, morning brain still. So if you're looking at bringing in increased visitors to your region from outside your region, the RTO is always a good person to go to, because the DMOs tie into the RTOs. So and the RTOs have a lot more programs and budget at their disposal to help get you do that. So the great thing with RTOs as well is because they can actually bridge the gap even more by bringing in DMOs you might not have a contact with, bringing in associations like Attractions Ontario or Camping Ontario, Resorts Ontario, whatever you need in your area, and help talk you through all the programs, like putting together workshops like this, right? These are all things that RTOs can bring to the table that a lot of other DMOs and can't, or it's very hard for attractions to do that together by themselves. So, and a great partnership example of this is several RTOs offer funding programs to help regional partners market themselves. I currently deal with several RTOs that some do dollar matching for whatever marketing spend you make, so that you have they have a more robust presence in out in the market to consumers. Some apply funds to help get the attraction tourism ready, to help grow your attraction. So there's a lot of great funding proposals that the RTOs offer, and some are very different than the other. So it's always best to approach yours and see what they have that can do. If you don't ask, you wouldn't really know, right? So I always recommend that highly, to go and talk to the RTOs. And like I said, you have a very good RTO that actually understands and tries to help their partners. Associations. So I use Attraction Ontario as an example, not because it's me, but also because Attraction Ontario, because the term attraction now has grown so much over the years, it kind of encompasses everything. We have resorts that are members, we have campsites that are members, we have hotels that are members. Culinary, we work a lot with culinary. So I use Attraction Ontario for that reason. So what associations do is we create effective marketing programs that benefit all levels of tourism. So especially, like, I'm using Attraction Ontario example, as a not-for-profit, our goal is not to make money off our partners. It's to make a program that's effective and helps our partners without breaking the bank for them. And also what we do is we try to work with DMOs and RTOs to amplify whatever their message is for their local market. And what I mean by that is I always say, when I deal with partners or DMOs and RTOs, is that use us to blast your message out even more, right? By way of our social media, our marketing opportunities. I know we have influencer programs, stuff like that. And every association has that. Like resorts has their piece for that, camping has their piece for that. But that's what those guides are for. They're to take whatever you're trying to do and amplify your message to everybody. So because we deal with so many different, like, especially like I'm using Attraction Ontario again, because we deal with a wide variety of attractions, we can aid or advise on several issues. The newest person in our office is 5 years. The rest of the staff have been there for almost 20 years each. So there's not a whole lot we haven't encountered that we can help with. And most associations haven't had a lot of turnover. So it's good to approach them and say, hey, is there anything you help me with on this level? Which is why, like, sometimes I get brought in to facilitate partnerships, or we'll have brought in to advise on dealing with like government issues and things like that. So it's always good to reach out to the association, because they do a lot of times have some advocacy levels as well to them, and can get that going for you. And because we're associations, we work with all levels of tourism. So we work from the bottom to the top. So we're a good entryway as well if you aren't sure where to go, which one fits you best, to reach out and help guide you if we can. Also, like I said before, we can help put together any partnerships, because we might already have partners we're waiting on to pair with someone else. So that is something that we do a lot of at all the different levels. So, and a great example of this, and this is our cover from last year's regional guide we did, which was very successful, is the Passport Magazine coupon book. What we'll do is it's filled with attractions, DMOs, RTOs, and associations to help create this. We work with ITO, we work with culinary, work with most of the RTOs in the province. There's a lot of DMOs in there. So it's a good example of association. It's also the most well-known piece of printed collateral in the province. And so this is an example of like the big things that associations do, right? They're print pieces. Ours is now digital and print. It's a hybrid, but they're the big marketing aspect that you look for when you're talking to an association. And what we do is also, we started doing regional covers to help showcase the regions even more. This year, we're going to have 6 different regional covers for the province, which is great. We're going to have one again this year for your region. So the good thing with that is that we've noticed that it really adds value to all the ads inside of it as well, and all the editorial inside of it as well. So it's a good product, and a good example of working with associations effectively. And Destination Ontario also helps fund this. So it's also ends up being their example, because we wouldn't be able to do all the copies we do without them also working together. So it's actually a piece that ties everyone together, which is great. So then we have Destination Ontario, the top of the food chain. So what they do is they help market Ontario to a larger international market. Now, I know during the pandemic, they shifted to focusing more on local as well, but by doing more with their website to showcase road trips, and but they still have but they're still the person to talk to if you're trying to get people from outside the province to come into the province. They help support associations in the province so we can help our members. So they will work closely with us, they'll work closely with RTOs, work closely with DMOs, so that they have all the tools they need to properly showcase you and the area as a whole. They also have a larger media budget to work with. So a lot of times they might approach you or approach an area and say, hey, we want to do like a breakfast television or a local news thing or TV ads. And they have the budget for that. So I know for most people in the province, it would be almost impossible to fund and pay for a TV promotion by themselves. But that's why working with Destination Ontario is a good way to skirt that, because they'll make it more cost effective for you by having multiple partners buy in. So that is all the levels in the province. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly go over back what we talked about. So now you see there are several partnership options province-wide. So you can go and I've tried to show you different ways to approach each one of them if need be. Each level supports each other. They all tie into each other going up and from down to the bottom. Each have different strengths to help partners. So there's some things that one level can't do as effectively as another, but they all add different things to the table to make it more effective. And it never hurts to reach out. If you aren't sure and just reach out to whatever they are and just ask them. Even like sometimes people say, well, I'm not sure, I don't want to ask, but what's the harm of asking? They'll either tell you we can't help you with that, but they probably will tell you who can help you with that. So never hurts to reach out. And if you have any questions or you aren't sure as well, like I said, I've been working for a long time in this industry and I've done this on different levels a lot. Please feel free to reach out for me, to me, I mean. And my email is right there, phil@attractionontario.ca, and I'd be more than happy to help you. So then hopefully there are questions.
Thanks, Phil.
Well, you're welcome.
I do see one question in the chat, that's just asking about what percentage of a budget would you recommend for marketing? I'm assuming if you're having a partnership offering and you guys are going in together, what kind of budget would you think for marketing a new partnership product?
So if you're looking at marketing a new product, a lot of times it depends. Well, it depends who you are, but normally if you're working with another attraction, I would say try to split it with them if possible. But another thing too is that it depends what you're trying to tap into. Like I've always tried to do 50-50 with the other partner. That way there you both have equal skin in the game with it. Both are invested in it. And also look at price out some of the channels you're looking to go into, because sometimes you can break it down through that. Oh, I will for sure. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, so I would say if you're looking to work with somebody, try to split it as much as you can. If there's 3 of you, try to do a third each. Like to make it fair. Like you don't want to have to carry the burden of it yourself if it's something like that, and also make it a budget that makes sense to you, right? You don't want to put yourself out there in one big shot and then you have nothing left after the fact.
Yep. So your next question there is, are there thematic tourism organizations? For example, History and Heritage Tourism Association.
There's the Ontario Museum Association, that is museums. There's different cultural groups in each area, but they haven't come across one that's just culture. Like normally when I work in the culture market, I'll work with each area's culture groups. So I could research that for you for sure. and see if there is. I haven't, like I said, I normally I would have came across my I would have came across my emails for now, or an email for sure from somebody, but I haven't yet. But I'd be more than happy to look that up for you and share it with you, Megan, if you can share it with everybody after the fact.
Absolutely. I can absolutely do that. Yeah, I was going to say, I know that a lot of areas have their own
They do, yeah.
heritage
Areas have their
committees
own
or,
cultural committees and
yeah.
stuff, yeah. And a lot of times they're volunteer run or stuff like that. And so I work with a lot of those, but it makes sense there should be maybe one culture body for the province. That makes sense, actually. Make it a
Yeah,
lot
I was going
easier
to
for
say
everybody.
part of the Ministry of
Right? You should be, right? Yeah.
Tourism, Culture, and Sport. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. It's part there. There should be the culture part.
Exactly. I don't see any other questions. If anyone has any last minute questions that they want to throw in, because otherwise what we could do is give everyone some of their time back for today.
And I want to make sure there was time for questions. So I was trying not to
Of
go
course.
over. So I apologize.
Oh, there you go. See?
There you go.
So, is there assistance provided for providing material in multiple languages? So, for example, French. But given the ever-growing immigrant population, multiple languages might be useful.
Yeah, well, I do work with the association SEO, it's Francophone, and they actually just have translated a lot of things for us from English to French to use in marketing. Uh, and I'd be happy to introduce you to my contact for that. For different cultures, we have went down that avenue before. We tried to do translations of our guide into 8 different cultures. There was some issues with that. Make sure you find a good translator, because we had a lot of people coming to us after saying, that's not what that says. And we had no way of knowing that. So there's not a body I know for like Hindi or Mandarin or along those lines, Spanish. But I know for French we use SEO. But I could look into that as well. Like I said, the time we went to that, it was ended up being, we had more complaints than anything. So from the consumer, so we haven't delved back into that again, and I haven't heard of one take that organization's place. But I will definitely reach out and look for one for you.
I was going to say, with SEO, I know previously they used to have a really good funding model in terms of assisting with French translation. Is it
Yep.
still something that is cost effective for, let's say, a smaller operator to be able to go to them for French translation?
Yeah, well, what I've learned from talking with them and working with them is, because they got funding, they have been looking for ways to use it to benefit other areas that want to have translations done. I know even with us, we have a contra deal with them, so they translate things for us we need to, and we help push out what they're doing to partners. So I'd be happy to introduce you and see if maybe they can work with that as a contra thing through us. You know what I mean? Like I've already worked that up. I don't know how much of their budget they've spent, but I know that one of their mandates was to work with attractions more to translate anything with that.
Perfect. There's some more questions here. As one is, what about partnering with schools for an education element?
Well, that is a whole different thing I do, and I'm happy you brought that up, because I work with all the school boards in the province. Yeah, dealing with that's another thing, workshop we talked about. Me and Meg actually having a school group one. So yeah, so what school boards are a whole different animal. Each of them are all different, but the good way to approach them is as long as it's curriculum based. I'm just giving you the Coles notes quickly on this, but if they're curriculum based and they have places to like, they look for things like, is the bus able to park? Is it far away? Because the biggest cost they have now is travel. So that is the biggest issue they have. Is there places to eat? Is there healthy things like that? Another thing too that schools look for, I'm just giving you everything I'm thinking of right now, is they look for like, are you able to accommodate special needs students, and not just wheelchair or autism and autism. If there's a place for them to go if they're having an attack, like an episode, stuff like that. So those are things that have changed a lot, and I'd be more than happy to talk about that as well. That's like I've been doing that part of it. I create a teacher field trip planner guide that goes to all the schools in the province through the boards, and every year I have to go through the approval process with all the boards to get it through. So every year they give me new advice and tell me new things that what they're looking for. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to give you all the knowledge on that as well. I have
I was
because
gonna
there's
say,
yeah, but like the bus is always going to be the highest ticket item for them. So
perfect. So what about opportunities to partner with or educate travel professionals?
like working with teachers or with tour operators. Sorry, just to clarify.
I would think probably tour operators, for example, let's say educating CAA about
Yeah.
product.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is something I've done in the past with the on the US side. We used to talk, I used to do a training session with them, how to sell this side. Uh, I know if you go, I know there are some conventions that they have. I think it's not OTIC. Uh, I will look into it again. I'm drawing a blank on the acronym for it, but what it is, it's but they do have an event you can go and sit down, and it is tour operators that go and you talk to them about what you're doing. I could, yeah, sorry, I've been reading the question, I'm on the board. Yeah, so what you do is you could work out to even have them experience your attraction or make a educator workshop, like a meet and greet almost, and invite the local ones there. That's something I'd be happy to help or work with Meg to do something like that.
I was going to say that might be a good opportunity also to work with your local DMO. They
That's what I'm saying.
often
Yeah,
do
because
fam
they offer
tours.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you do one with with the educators, it brings them in to see what you're offering, and then they can sell it more effectively.
Yep. So Kim had a question here is, do you offer any example scripts for how to approach potential partners, i.e. if it is a cold call, if it's drop by, or if you're dropping off a card?
Yeah, sometimes emails are always a good way. A lot of times I will drop in person, so they get to meet me. I get to see what they're doing. It gives you a different sense of it. I could definitely send you an email example of introducing yourself, saying what you're looking at doing, and then normally I go from there to a meeting. Sometimes it depends where it goes. You don't hear back right away from emails, which is why I do the face-to-face a lot of times. But it's effective because at least like people might be going through the same thing you're thinking, going, "Oh wow, someone emailed me about partnerships," and it'll make it even better for them. So yeah, I will definitely send you examples of what I send out cold to do it, because going up to anybody cold can be intimidating. So I'd be happy to help with that as well and send that over.
Perfect. Are there any potential liabilities associated with partnering opportunities that anyone should be aware of?
Yeah, well, one of the things you have to be aware of going into a partnership, and that's why I always stress make sure it makes sense for you, is because you're putting a lot of faith in the fact that they're going to follow through on what their offer is. So that's the only liability, and it's rare that happens. It's rare that one part doesn't honor the partnership agreement, but that is the one thing going in you have to think of, like, and ensure it doesn't hurt your brand, right? Which is why when you go in, you have to almost like do like a mini SWOT analysis in your head, saying, okay, I see the strength of this. What could this hurt me with? And go from there. Like I said, I've rarely seen that happen, but it's always good to go into any partnership thinking to yourself, like, what's the worst case scenario that could happen here if they don't follow through what they're doing? So that's the main thing I would worry about. But a lot of that comes down to doing pre-vetting of who you're going to go after.
Perfect. And then there's another comment here just about in terms of the education spectrum, about getting a copy of the Ontario curriculum
Yeah,
to
that's
see
very
if
yeah.
your experiences tick off part of the guidelines of what they're looking to do for the year.
Yeah, it's normally like I go through the boards to see that, but and they give me a copy of what they have. But there's supposed to be a master copy. I've been able to get it yet after all these years. But there's not much anymore that isn't curriculum based, it seems like. So and if you aren't sure if you are or not, I can be more than happy to help, because when I put the guide together and I have the partners go in, I have to always make sure they're curriculum based. So I have a good grasp on it as well, but I'd be more than happy to answer that for you if you aren't sure.
Perfect. And I'm just going to double check to make sure we got everything. Oh, there is one question about mental health wellness approaches to partnerships. I'm assuming that it's about, Will, you can clarify. But I'm assuming it's about working with mental health or wellness businesses to
Yeah,
perhaps
like,
improve your offering.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you approach a business that specializes in that, it's great because you can use them to educate your staff and yourself on that if that's what you're looking at doing. Uh, Partnering with them, I don't see any negative aspect to that. If I was going to partner with an association or group that does that mainly, uh, and I think it would put you ahead of the game a bit because that is a much needed aspect now of any industry. That I don't think there'd be a difference with it unless you're saying that they have issues, like they're the ones dealing with it, then I would obviously approach it in a much more cautious way. But it never hurts to work with associations like that. So
Perfect. And I don't see any more questions coming in. We can give it a minute just to make sure that we get everyone answered. But one other thing I will say about in terms of the mental health partnering wellness is making sure, Phil touched on it, as having your staff trained on it. Especially depending on what your business is, but accommodators and front desk staff who might be working with the general public. At least knowing, I think that that's actually a big part of first aid training now too, is they kind of touch on
it is, yeah.
administering first aid for somebody going through a mental health crisis. So always encourage looking into local partnerships in terms of getting the training for staff so that you're ticking that box.
Yeah. And I would say, sorry, go ahead, Nick. Sorry, I didn't want
No,
to cut
go
you off.
ahead.
And also, if you do invest the time in doing that, let people know you did. Let people know you're qualified to deal with that and your staff are qualified to deal with it. Because I know a few years ago, even when dealing with the education market, I had a member come up to me and say, "We did all this training." I said, "We have to talk about that because that's going to be something that they don't have to worry about then when they bring their students, because it's a lot more common nowadays for even young kids to have anxiety when they go to places and to uh, or autism or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different levels now to it. So
Yeah. So we have another question, says, given that transportation is a major expense for schools or groups, is there funding available for regions to help bring people in by offsetting the cost?
oh, that's a good question. I have not heard of that. That would be hugely beneficial. If that existed. And the way the boards go, they have the bus companies kind of like bid against themselves for the contract. So you are getting they are giving the best deal they can. But if there was a funding policy for that, it would make field trips not a problem at all completely. Which is why, like, also and so I would talk about in a workshop, is that if you are going to tap into that market area they always look to it to be, if it's an hour a drive, they want at least 2 hours of things to do. Just to keep in mind that if they have to drive an hour to get somewhere, they want to have at least 2 hours of things to do. So sometimes partnering with local attractions to do like a full day of field trips, like hours for it, is, I've noticed, has become even more popular, especially because of the cost of for buses. So, and transportation as a whole.
Seems like a good opportunity to build some local partnerships to
That's right.
create an
So it all
education
ties together, right?
itinerary.
There's no bad thing that comes from partnering together, right? So there you go.
Combining the two perfectly.
Let's see, right? It works perfectly. It impacts every level of tourism and business in general, right? So
Good relationships with your local community always
that's right.
pays off.
That's right. There's no bad way to do that.
Perfect. So if there's no other questions, we managed to get to 10:50. So good
Oh, yes.
conversation.
Well, I was happy there was questions. And like I said, I was very wary of keeping it an hour, so I didn't want to talk too long and I could ramble. And
Perfect. But if anyone does have any other additional questions that come up now that the session's kind of winding down, Phil has his email. Phil, do you want to put your email in the chat
oh
so
yeah,
that
sorry, yeah, I'll put it right now.
anyone can just quick access? So Phil will be able to answer any questions that you may have after this session, should anything come up. but you did get an extra question. Are there tourism credits that the province offers to entice businesses to partner with tourism sites? So I'm guessing, is there incentive to create partnerships?
To work together. It's not incentive per se, but there are funding programs that you can tap into if you do partner. So it's like not really telling you to partner, but if you do partner, all of a sudden you can open up these doors to more marketing dollars that you wouldn't have had prior and things like that. So it's they should advertise it more like that, but as soon as you are in a partnership, all of a sudden, boom, there's money everywhere. Seems like, right? Yeah. So those, and there's different levels of those. Like I know RTOs have those, DMOs have some of those, and then Destination Ontario obviously has that. And then associations, what we'll do is we'll work with whatever budget you have to accommodate how to spend the funding.
Yeah, and I was actually just going to jump in and say that for RTO9 specifically, and there's also lots of other RTO9s that offer the partnership funding, that your application is stronger when you have more than one partner that you're working with to create a product or an itinerary or something. So the RTO9 always encourages you to build partnerships with other businesses because it offers a little bit more of a inclusive itinerary for people, and it gives people a little bit more of a reason to stay for a little bit longer, so that if they're having a big partnership with, let's say you created a taste trail with 5 other partners, then it gives people more incentive to spend an extra night because they can do this taste trail one day, do some of the other attractions another day. So
that's right.
Partnerships are really important in tourism, and they just strengthen your offering.
Yeah, the reason why we've been able to start coming out of this terrible pandemic, then it was because people are starting to work together more to rejuvenate the province, which is nice. So there's more partnerships now than there ever was before, it seems like. So, which is what we needed. So
yeah, it's nice to be able to lean on somebody else and have the support network.
That's right, because we've all survived it now, right? So we're all coming out of it, right? So
coming out of it stronger, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, we're offering a lot more things to the consumer and the locals. So
exactly. So if there's any other questions, no, I don't see any. But yeah, if you think of anything, please feel free to email myself or Phil. I'm happy to forward anything along as well if you only have my email address from the Eventbrite. But otherwise, if we have no other questions, no, it's not a question. Just a nice comment about looking forward to receiving the presentation, and partnerships are definitely key to our communities. So,
my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you so much for coming, Phil. Appreciate the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to forward them along. Otherwise, we'll let you guys have 10 minutes back.
Oh, I posted up above. Yeah, it should be up a bit above there.
Yep, I'll just repost it. There you go. Awesome. Yeah, so I'll let everyone have not quite 10 minutes back of their time, but thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great day, everybody, and I look forward to hearing from you.